The proposed Bottineau light rail line remains in the planning phase, with public input still being taken for a new route connecting downtown Minneapolis to Brooklyn Park. According to the federal government, the project's funding status is to be determined. Along with that funding uncertainty comes concerns about options for the new alignment. You'll recall the previous alignment was nixed because no agreement could be reached to share space next to BNSF railway freight trains. Proposals for the new route would put light rail trains in the middle of County Road 81. As Delane Cleveland reports, that has officials in Robbinsdale concerned.
County Road 81 is in the heart of Robbinsdale's business district, and city leaders have expressed concerns about what could happen if light rail trains go down this road.
I personally am not very optimistic with this particular route that it won't be so disruptive and so damaging to Robbinsdale to have it work.
Councilmember Pat Backen is one of the critics of the route. He says the proposal raises a lot of questions about how construction would impact businesses along County Road 81, how traffic would flow through the city, and how pedestrians would be able to safely cross the street. The city wouldn't have had to deal with all of those issues if BNSF Railway had agreed to share its freight corridor with light rail trains.
My preferred route is still through the rail corridor. We still haven't seen detailed drawings of how this might work on County Road 81. We do have some pretty big concerns about if there's enough space.
There is still a long way to go before any sort of construction happens. But first, all the cities along the corridor would have to provide municipal consent before the project can move forward. That means that Robbinsdale's concerns will have to be addressed at some point. In Robbinsdale, Delane Cleveland, CCX News.
It is not only going to be a hot weekend, it will be a busy one for road construction in Brooklyn Center. Interstate 94-694 will be closed all weekend for a bridge deck removal project near Highway 100. The eastbound lanes of the interstate will be closed between Highway 169 and Highway 252. The westbound lanes will be closed between 252 and Highway 100. Detours are posted. The closures are expected to last until 5 a.m. Monday. As debates continue over police reform, several local elected leaders gave updates on changes they're trying to implement. Brooklyn Center Mayor Mike Elliott, State Representative Cedric Frazier of New Hope, and Congresswoman Ilhan Omar took part in a roundtable discussion on public safety on Thursday. The proposed changes range from additional police accountability measures to funding for violence prevention groups. In Brooklyn Center, the city approved sweeping changes in policing after an officer fatally shot Dante Wright during a traffic stop. The changes the city wants to enact include having unarmed professionals respond to mental health calls and traffic stops.
We're telling people that this is just about adding tools to our toolbox, right? It's just creating more options for us for when our community is in need. And I think that has gone a long way to really helping people who may at first either not fully understand or disagree with what they may have heard is in the resolution.
You can see the full public safety discussion on our website at ccxmedia.org. Pandemic baking helped grow sales for Golden Valley-based General Mills. And now the company is looking to the future with plans to shift strategies and cut jobs. In a 9-month period during the pandemic, the Golden Valley food maker saw revenue jump 8%. The company typically sees 1% to 2% growth when sales are good. What's next has not been fully revealed, but multiple reports citing memos obtained from company officials show wide restructuring and many layoffs. The company is expected to disclose more details in the coming weeks. For the remaining weekends in June, you can take in works from one of Minnesota's most important painters. Neil Persley shows you where in today's Weekend Showcase.
Richard Sussman is probably one of the top 5 most famous painters from Minnesota.
And he was actually born in Minneapolis, Minnesota in 1908 and got some of his art education here, went to North High School, But he got some education at the Minneapolis School of Art, now known as MCAD, Minneapolis College of Art and Design.
But in those days, an aspiring artist really had to head to New York City to be where the action was in the art community.
And that's kind of the start of where this show goes. From the mid-1930s is when he went out there to the mid-1950s.
This exhibit features the early years of Sussman's work. During World War II, he worked in a shipyard as a draftsman in California. Then he moved his family back to Minnesota. The exciting thing about this exhibit is that there are some never-before-seen works on display from this influential giant. The works recently resurfaced from his estate.
And you might say, well, that's a bit unusual in the fact that he died some 50 years ago in 1971. But that artwork has sat in that same location for the next 50 years, and this is the first opportunity for people to see some of those works that he had in his own personal collection.
His works are included at the Metropolitan Museum of Art, the San Francisco Museum of Art, the Minneapolis Institute of Art, the Walker Art Gallery, and many more distinct museums and collections.
And so, yeah, he's well collected in some major museums' permanent collections.
The art of Richard Sussman, the early years, is on display at Gallery 5004, Saturdays and Sundays through the end of June. Check their website for gallery hours. For Weekend Showcase in Robbinsdale, Neil Persley, CCX News.
And mark your calendar to take a step back in history on June 12th. That's the date when the Golden Valley Historical Society will reopen their History Museum. The museum is attached to the city's oldest church and features the current exhibit, Golden Valley, No Place Like Home, that tells the story of Golden Valley from pre-European contact until today. The museum is open each Saturday starting June 12th, 11 a.m. to 3 p.m.
I'm John Jacobson with sports. Spots in the state girls golf tournament were up for grabs for several local teams Thursday. Jay Wilcox has more.
Lauren Contreras of Maple Grove tees off in round 2 of the Section 5 3A girls golf tournament, the Crimson with a huge lead. Amelia Morton of the Crimson knocks down a short par putt on the 13th hole at Links at North Fork. Morton cards a second round 75 and places 4th. Her teammate Julia Contreras leaves her birdie putt a little short on 13, but she taps in for par and places 5th with a 2-round total of 158. Taylor Ullen of Champlain Park sinks a nice par putt on the 12th hole, and it's an important one as Ullen secures the final individual state qualifying spot, placing 10th overall. Park Center freshman Allison Blomberg has the putt lip out on number 13, but Blomberg is also headed to state after placing 9th with a 2-round total of 165. Here's the individual champ. Catherine Van Aragon of Blaine birdies the 11th hole with this putt and wins by 7 strokes, finishing 3 under par. But it's Maple Grove's day. Maria Contreras leaves the birdie try left on the 12th hole. She taps in for par and places 6th, right behind her twin sister Julia. And older sister Lauren hits the birdie on number 16 to place 2nd and lead the Crimson to a whopping 84-stroke victory over runner-up Roseville, with Rogers 3rd. Jay Wilcox, CCX Sports.
In lacrosse, 2 local teams played a close one in the Section 5 boys quarterfinals. Jason Malillo has the highlights.
Boys lacrosse section quarterfinal, Maple Grove hosting Breck. Brady Lawrence nice pass to Carson Bloomer, and he scores for a 4-2 Crimson lead. Time winding down in the first half, Lawrence finds Bloomer again, and he snaps the low shot home with 2 seconds left, and it's 5-2 Maple Grove. Third quarter, Lawrence continues to show off his playmaking skills as he penetrates and passes to Dylan Brock for the shot and goal, 6-2 Crimson. Breck rallies in the fourth quarter. Charlie Reichs whips the goal, cutting the lead to 6-4. Then Cormac O'Neill creates a shot for himself and scores low. Mustangs are within 1. But Maple Grove holds on for a 6-5 victory, advancing to the semifinals. Jason Malillo, CCX Sports.
Summer crappies is the topic of this week's CCX Sports Fishing Tip. Here's Hall of Fame angler Terry Tuma.
Right now we're entering the summer crappie pattern, and that's due to, of course, the warmer water temperatures. In fact, someone was telling me the other day, the lake that they were on, it hit 70 degrees. So this is the time to really take a look at where these crappies are going to be. Use your electronics to mark these fish, that's number one. Number two, don't always look for schools of crappies. Many times they're going to be suspended, of course, in schools, but along with that, they can be along the bottom. They're sort of stretched out, if you would, maybe 1 or 2 here, 3 or 4 there. So we're going to use, and generally speaking, your jigs and plastics are the most productive, and I use the electric trolling motor, and generally speaking, slow. You can also cast. You can have had great success with just plastic, but you can tip with minnow if so desire, and it's a very, very much of a productive way of catching fish. The other way, when you got these scattered crappies, and I do a ton of this, is using a live bait rig, and just exactly similar to walleye fishing, but 4-pound test line and a snell of about 4 to 5 feet. Again, electric trolling motor, very, very slow, and of course tipped with, now I'll tip it with more so a fat hit, but you want to have visibility factor for those crappies. But these are 2 great ways of catching crappies, and of course we have the bobber system too. When you're fishing with the plastics at a jig, you can either vertical jig, and again I prefer slow trolling over those schools of crappies. Always remember, when you're jigging for crappies, always start on the top side or the sides of those crappies. If you start to pull them out of the center of that school, you're going to spook them, they're going to relocate. Be sure to give crappie fishing a fun try this summer. Lots and lots of enjoyment fishing crappies.